All right, hello boys and girls. This is Old Man Yells at Cloud doing a video for my Patreon, Blue Powder Monkeys. We're going to do a little Illustrator work today. So for those of you not in the loop, this is basically what I still call, I guess, the Watch Me Work videos, where you get to watch me work, which sometimes can be kind of exciting and sometimes can be, just watching a guy work or whatever. Those of you interested in graphic design and Illustrator may get some stuff out of this just to see how I do my workflow. Sometimes it'll sound like I'm a little cranky at Illustrator, but honestly I use it probably more than any other Adobe product. I'm fine with Photoshop, and Photoshop has its uses, and I love InDesign for the most part, that I don't get to work in InDesign that often. There's a couple videos out there of me doing stuff on InDesign, and if I get an opportunity to do a project in InDesign, I will definitely stream that. InDesign is multi-page document stuff. I do typography, so it's great to lay out a magazine or a book or some sort of brochure thing with all its typography tools and text tools. Illustrator, despite the name, isn't great at illustrating, although you can see this little doodad here, that they've got. This is actually a decent example because it's basically like geometric shapes, clear, clean colors. I don't like their gradient tool that much, so I don't use I actually don't use gradients at all in Illustrator if I can help it. Sometimes in the background, you can see right there, a project I'm using kind of a really light gradient here, but for the most part, it's all kind of just normally flat colors. I'm not an anti-AI guy, but there's definitely some, I don't want to say moral, there's definitely some sort of ethical things about it that don't make me super comfortable. I like the idea of maybe being able to have closed off AI systems that you could train on your own work. That seems pretty cool. I've seen artists do that where they sort of teach it how to illustrate like themselves, and then you get away from the whole kind of learn how to do all this stuff by using other people's work, and the corporations taking other people's work. So we're not going to be doing any AI stuff. I don't use it hardly at all. I don't do generative backgrounds, for example. I'm trying to remember a case. You know what? This video is an example. I edit it in DaVinci Resolve, and there is an AI feature which they clearly label as an AI feature, which is nice of them, where you can sort of cut out all the dead spaces. So when you hear those little gaps, like that one where maybe the sound is a little jumpy, and if there was a video, you'd see a little, or if there was a video of me, you'd see a little jump where you leave space and then it just sort of cuts it out. Also in the past, which I think this is the last caveat before we get going, I usually had a little picture of myself down in the corner somewhere. I inevitably blocked off something I was doing at some point, and I'm not like the most photogenic dude in the world, and I'm not sure that there's any extra worth at seeing my face doing expression or whatever. But if for some reason that makes you a little more interested in the video, for whatever reason, make a comment, and I will take it under consideration, because I'm not shy about it. I'm happy to put my face up there. It's just that I feel like you guys get more out of just being able to see the whole screen. So what are we up to today? I do a virtual tabletop program called Foundry, which does virtual tabletop stuff. And you can go look that up and find out what that is. But it's basically role-playing game stuff. And I'm doing kind of a homebrew version of a game called Traveller. Traveller is a science fiction game that was created in the maybe late 70s, but definitely early 80s. It uses 2d6, and I'm going to use some terminology that role-playing gamers might not be used to or whatever, so I kind of apologize for that. Most games use they're storytelling games, and then most of them use a d20. They use all different sizes of dice, but they'll use a d20 for most conflict resolution and that kind of stuff. Traveller uses 2d6. It's a 2d6 system, so you roll, generate a number between 2 and 12. If you don't know how bell curves work, that's a good way to get into it. It basically means that because you're rolling 2 dice and adding them together, the numbers in the middle are more common because it's easier to get them. For example, there is only one way to roll a 2 on 2d6, and it's to have both the dice show snake eyes. Same with boxcars, the 6s, so there's only one way to roll a 12. There are, however, many ways to roll a 7, which is the most common number on 2d6. You can have a 4 and a 3, a 5 and a 2, a 6 and a 1. This doesn't have much to do with what we're doing today. It's just sort of background. So in Traveller, they have skills. And what I'm doing is I'm creating icons today to place into the program to represent those skills. And at some point, I will be offering the icons on our Patreon page for you to use for whatever you want. You could use them for a role-playing game, or you could just think they were kind of cool, I guess. I don't know, and put one on a t-shirt. No, probably not. So I'll just have this screen, even though I'll be working on both screens. You'll be able to just see my actual Illustrator work. Now, let's get into it. This is Illustrator. Illustrator has a neat little pop-up screen where they show you the last projects you've worked on. However, one little annoyance is if I was to click on this, basically I just kind of use my pen I'm using a Wacom Cintiq tablet. Nothing happened, right? Oh, something did happen this time. It used to be that you had to click on it like 2 or 3 times for it to actually kind of show up or whatever. So that is new, or I've been doing it wrong this whole time. I don't know. Anyway, this is my layout. It's customized to my uses, so your Illustrator is not necessarily going to look like this exactly. But you've got all these nice little tools down the side, and then sort of I have a second layer of tools. These are all the things I use enough that I want a tool of them, though some of them I don't use hardly at all, honestly. And some, like this paragraph and text tool, that's a text tool, text. Those I use when I'm doing text, which isn't as frequent unless I'm doing like a logo or something like that. And I don't use this little eraser at all, but the eraser has a scissors tool underneath it, see? And I'm sorry I don't have one of the little mouse doodad or the little programs that kind of tell you what button I'm hitting with my mouse. That would be, useful for you guys. But I will try to talk through as much as possible. So any of the tools that have these little triangles in the corners, not that one, but this one and this one, basically you can push and hold, and it'll open up a sub-menu, and then you can just select a different tool. So that's how that works. I also occasionally use shortcut keys for the select tools, because there's the regular select, which I think is V, and this one is maybe an A. But honestly, I don't find shortcut keys as useful in Illustrator for whatever reason. And I find shortcut keys in general less useful because my keyboard is kind of off at a 90-degree angle so that I can work this Cintiq tablet. The tablet comes with these little hot buttony TV remote control looking thing that I can program stuff in, but I haven't really gotten comfortable with that yet, so whatever. Anyway, these are layers. Illustrator works on artboards, which are these squares here, and layers, which are these layers. So let me turn everything off. Oh, that's bright. All right, this is kind of what it looks like in its raw form. You can create an artboard like any other program of any size you want. I have created 6 artboards, which some people use if they have a logo they want to apply to maybe like a business card and letterhead and a website and whatever else people use logos for, t-shirts I keep going back to. You can kind of take it and like drag it across and make multiple copies, right? And then layers are just things that are within an artboard, and it's actually within all the artboards. You could put a circle on all 6 artboards and it would appear on one layer, basically. And I'll kind of show you that as we go along. So why I'm doing this gets back into the Traveller part of it. There's a generic background here that I have. I want all of my normal skills to have a green outline, so I just usually do that. They have military-based skills in the game if you're like a military character. And for those I use a red, not to represent blood, but just that they're restricted in some way. And then I think for one time I used an kind of a yellowish orange, which basically represents some sort of special thing that isn't a skill. So in Traveller, you have a base skill that you get to do stuff, and then you have little sub-skills that are more specialized. And so you initially earn your regular skill, and then as you get higher in ability, you can earn one or more of the specialized skills. So for example, animals. And you can see a little work thing over to the side here and all the rest of that. So this represents having the generic animal skill. And then the sub skills are veterinarian, and then you have the little hospital cross there. Training, or animal handling as it would be called in fantasy games like Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. So I have a little stirrup here. And then exo animals, because it's a science fiction game, you may run into some sort of crossbred alien beast. So I gave that one 5-toe. And that's basically how they all work, right? So like bureaucracy, paperwork, and then I have another layer up here that has some generic ones that I use for several of the skills, and that is civilian, or basically like blue collar-y kind of stuff with sort of a semi little union logo kind of thing. The corporation, which has its own symbol. Is that a... Oh, that is a thing. Oh, I left a little green thing there. That's cool. And that's a representation of that. This is a representation of government with the pillars, and then military. So when you can get bureaucracy, and you can get civil bureaucracy, corporate bureaucracy. That's a tough word. I shouldn't have chose this one as an example. What was the other one I said? Government bureaucracy. All right. So, and then as you can see here, there are many different ones, right? There's, oops, let's turn that off. You can turn the layers off, on and off here, and you can lock the layers here, similar to Photoshop. One of the ones that's interesting is this is electronics, generic electronics, communication, computers, and I think sensors, maybe? Can't remember exactly. I think it is sensors. So those are the three. And then there's another electronic skill that we call Class A, which is restricted to certain classes. In other words, is like a regular Joe, you couldn't get those. So that has a little locky pick thing, meaning it's high security, and then these are changed a little bit. So, for example, if you look at that one, you can see there's no little bumps, no little doodad, and then bonk, right? Before, after. So that just kind of indicates that it's more specialized, right? And then that is remote ops, military, because you remember the symbol for military, and security, which is the little lockpick thing, but it's lit up this time, right? And in this case, when I exported these out, I exported out this one, and that one as regular green bordered ones. And then I just turn this off and turn that back on to export that out for the military one. So that's how that works, right? All right. So we're going to turn the green ones on. We're going to turn that off. And then I'm just going to start doing one. So I'm going to pause every once in a while, though when I edit this, the pauses most likely will be taken out. So it'll just happen instantly. But I basically go over and check my Foundry, which I have open on my other screen. And then I have to open up the place where all the skills are listed. And then I go down the list, and I am currently at Pilot is the next one that I'm doing. So I need some skills for that. So I'm going to create a new layer with my little plus here. You can also grab a layer and drag it to the plus, but that just creates a duplicate. And sometimes that's useful. In this case, it doesn't matter either way. It's a little left. It's about the same amount of work either way. So I'm going to do that, and you can see it created a layer up here. So then I'm going to grab it, push and hold. I'm going to pull it down alphabetical because I'm a big alphabet guy, into there. I'm going to double click. If I double clicked here, it would just open up the text field, but I also want to change the color to this magenta because I want all the skills to have a specific color. And then if I do other things in this document that aren't skills, but maybe are skill related, then I'll do those in a different color up here, and I'll show you that. I'll show you the color thing here now. So double click over here, not on the words, bonk, and that opens up this little menu. So now I can go Pilot, click, click, click. I have a clicky keyboard, which are awesome. And then I didn't hit enter because I probably should have done this part first. I open this up. For some reason, it defaults to whatever its color was, and it randomly chose gold. I page up, I find magenta, and then I click OK. And now it's Pilot Magenta. Matches all the rest of them, right? All right, cool. So you saw a bunch of other documents I'd been working on. Some of those were older versions of this. I tend to redo things. Maybe it's because I don't plan ahead as much or something. I don't know. But I have older versions that I draw inspiration from, right? So I'm going to do Open Recent Files, And then I'm going to grab the old version of the skills, which you can already tell are a lot, I think they're smaller. Actually, they may be about the same size. And then they're just not, oh yeah. But they're not like zoomed in as much. And then I'm going to open jobs, because all the different character classes, as you can see here, have specific logos and stuff that they use for them. And then I also created tags for the various games. So for example, in the game you could do a job and you randomly generate what sort of sector it's in, meaning who you're helping out, right? And that's geopolitical or citizen, that kind of thing. I probably should change that into that other logo there. I'll go back at the end and basically try to mix and match things that I sort of overlooked the first time. For example, this one is on point. Military looks like this, right? And then I took that over to that other one and created that other military thing that you guys saw. I'm doing pilot, and that means piloting spaceships of various sizes. The scout class does a lot of that. So I probably want to base the pilot skill on this, right? But I'll also go over here and I'll see what I did last time. And I'll page down here. Oh, I'll go too far because alphabet. And it looks like I kind of did the same sort of thing. So this was the game that I'm going to run is in sort of what they call a retro science fiction thing. So it's basically what it would be like if science fiction had taken everything it knows from the 70s type of deal, right? Which is why everything is this monochromatic green to indicate the old like CRT or whatever they were called monitors back in the day, which is funny that I'm not confident what they're called because I literally grew up on them when I first started doing computer stuff. But I also did this as sort of a very subtle homage to like the movie Alien, which had the little Nostromo logos and that kind of stuff on there. So there's pilot. Looks like I don't have any sub-skills for pilot at the time, so that's interesting. So I'm going to grab this, copy it, Control C, like every other thing in the world, and then I'm just going to throw it on this table here, just off to the side on my little work area, and then I'm going to grab the which it looks like is exactly the same, so that should be not confusing at all. Then we'll go over here. So, oh, interesting. It doesn't have the... Did I lock that, I wonder? So you can lock individual elements in Illustrator. So that's usually Control 2, but then Control Alt 2 unlocks things. And yeah, there we go. So Control Alt 2 showed me that I did lock that for some reason. So we're going to do version 2 here. Now, one of the tricks is you should know as a creator that you should save your files early and often, right? Because shit can go wrong. However, I'm not going to be modifying the skills or the job icons currently. I'm just drawing material from them. So I'm not going to be saving them. And so when I close Illustrator, when it asks me if I want to save them, I will say no. And I will just get a fresh copy the last time I saved, which prevents things like, let's say I was copying this and then I just did something like that, like a dummy, and didn't notice it and then turned it off and went on about my merry way. If I save this, then the next time I get it, it's all fucked up, right? So it's just like clean workflow stuff, right? So there we go. So then the next thing I'm going to do is see if there's anything else that maybe is pilot related in here, like blue collar can do some of that stuff, but that symbol is used for so many other things. Let's see. G infrastructure is just the round thing. That doesn't matter. I don't like these sector ones as much. You might have just heard a meow. We have two cats, Q and Moneypenny. Q is a ginger and Moneypenny is a calico. So they're about as stereotype color and gender as you can get as far as cats are concerned. Moneypenny comes into my office occasionally and meows and then runs away. Q does not usually come into my office. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. He's more of a, when you go to bed, he wants to lay in the spot that you're trying to lay kind of cat. And she's a lot more independent. She sleeps wherever. All right, so then I'm going to kind of page through these a little bit and see there's like, you know, aircraft things, but that doesn't matter for piloting. I mean, it matters for piloting, but you know what I mean. The icon doesn't matter. Demolition electronics, firearms, food, geodesy. Geodesy is technically the ability to determine where Earth is in space, or where you are on Earth or something, but I'm using it because I like the name. I'm using it as the skill you would use to do navigation stuff, basically. Or astrogation if you're in space. All right, so there's no sub-pilot skills for some reason. I don't know what I was trying to do there. Vehicles, and it's like a yin-yang symbol thing almost. Bunch of trade stuff. Bunch of, let's see. I think there were earlier versions that I did sub-skills, and I leaned into the whole alien thing a little more by putting the Nostromo had these sort of like rainbow doodads on there or whatever, but that was a little too on the nose. So, all right. So I like this just fine. This was pilot originally, and this was scout, and this pilot thing I think is fine. I like this because this is the modern version of the scout one. I'm going to use this as the base and just remove this little moon thing. So it'll basically be this, but it'll be that. And then I have these stars, and I don't know if I'm into the stars as much. I mean, I'm into the stars, I guess. Not sure if I want to make cleaner stars. So one of the things you'll notice, let's go to geodesy, because I was talking about how cool it was. So generic geodesy, astrogation. No, this is astrogation, actually. Holy cow. This is astrogation because it's got the little planets that match, the planet pilot stuff. This is just regular navigation because you're using the stars above Earth to navigate. And this is survival because you need to find where North is. But as you can see from a lot of these base skills, they're duo color at best. And I started using a little more of the duo colors, but some of them are just generically that dark, right? So I don't want to have 3 colors for sure. That's not a look that I want. So we're going to get rid of this one. I like a clean space. Oops. Get it space. All right. And then we're going to go ahead, just in case, I'm going to control, and then you get the little double thing, and that's basically makes a copy. And then you can just click and drag, and now I've created a clean copy over here, so that I can fuck with this one and not worry about things. We're going to change this into that darker green to make it match the other ones. So you open up your little palettes here. It comes preloaded with a bunch of colors. And honestly, I should delete most of these. I think I'm going to do that right. Nice try. I'm going to delete most of these because they're CMYK colors. Here's an actual pretty important tip that I probably should write out somewhere else for all the people on Reddit that always ask. There are 2 different color spaces. CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And then there's RGB, which is red, green, blue. You guys, most modern people, most non-creatives are used to RGB because that's what monitors give you, basically. In print, though, when you physically print a thing, it's CMYK. They basically blend these 4 colors together to make all the other colors. The issue is you can't get a true sense of what these colors are on your monitor because your monitor is literally RGB. It's in the RGB color space. So you can say that this is going to be a CMYK magenta, and you can see it on your screen, right? Oops, I've lost it. Right, so I can do that, and it's magenta-y, but it's not going to look like that when it's printed. It's going to be probably a little duller and all that. So a lot of people get kind of confused about that, and they're like, why do these colors look kind of weird? And then you get into these sub aspects of printing, right? Are you having it done at a really professional place? Are you having it done at your local freaking Office Max or Kinko's or whatever? Because that's going to matter. The type of paper you printed on matters. All of that kind of stuff, right? But I do a lot of print stuff in InDesign. Again, I do a lot of multi-page documents, and that's for actual print, and I need the CMYK colors. Here, it's basically just taking up space, right? You see me having to scroll around all this crap. So I'm just going to, and I just hadn't gotten around this whole time to just delete these things out of here. I'm going to keep the grays for now, but I probably won't use them, and I don't need these brights for sure. I created grace. I think it might come with the program now, but back in the day, I use a lot of different grayscale stuff. So I had two different ones that go by 10 and one that goes by 5. This is the percentage of black that you'd use and all that. So this is basically all I use are these. And then I have a more extensive green shades and all the rest of that I use for other parts of the game, but I don't need it for this. And then these are weird, just little freaking patterns and fucking gradients and stuff. And I, again, don't really use gradients for this. So I'm definitely going to get rid of this stuff. So, hey, this video inspired me to clean up my workstation a little bit. And then there's registration black and black black. And as you can see, there's slightly different shades. And then you can also choose how Illustrator represents black visually to know whether or not you're going to get like an actual black black or a more of a duller black. Because here's the deal, and I always get this confused even though I freaking have a degree in this stuff. RGB color and CMYK color, one is sort of absorption of color in a way, and one is brightness, basically. So when you mix CMYK color together, you move towards black. The more color you put into it, the darker and muddier it's going to get. When you do that with CMYK colors, you go towards white, right? Like CMYK goes up to, I don't remember in its basic shit. It's not much higher than well, let's open this up and find out. Yeah, it's not much higher than 238, right? It's 255, that's right. So the more you go this direction, the more you go towards just a pure white. And with CMYK, all right, so when you go towards, when you have this gray, for example, obviously the more black I'm adding, the darker it gets. But you can do what's called a rich black, where you basically, where you use the other colors. Maybe you only have about 5% black or so, or not close enough. And then you crank these guys up. And you can see, right, it's starting to get black. And then if I crank them all to 100, then that's a printed black, which is going to appear a little grayer, right, unless I do this. But depending on where you put your black and where you put your other percentages, you will get what's called a richer black, meaning it seems to almost have depth. Basically, it's not just like a flat black that everything disappears into. And then the other weird little printer thing, for those of you that may ever work for the printer, these percentages usually can't add up to over 300 because it basically creates a muddy mess on the when you print it physically, right? So 3 times 80 is 240, 248, 250, 252, 253, 293. So this would be an acceptable, although it's not super black, this would be an acceptable amount of ink to basically physically put onto the page. So there you go. There's a little color lesson for you. I have a touch screen, so my fingers basically just made the thing zoom in a little bit, so don't freak out, it's fine. All right. And then these darker star things work because that's the same color as this. And I've already been okay with having two-tone. So part of me right now is debating whether or not I remove one or these other colors to make them all the lighter green or to make them all the darker green. And I think in order to keep consistency with the other logos, I'm going to make them all the dark green, right? So I'm going to go into here. Oh, and then I only have halves. Well, this will be a good lesson here. All right. So let's start this over here and give you guys some actual fucking stuff here. All right. So there's my little star. I could rebuild the star off to the side, but then I could kind of match them up. Which would be easy, right? Like let's do this 2 ways to show you. There's always multiple ways to do stuff, right? So there is a star. That's the dark color already. I could grab it, stick it over there, and I'm done, right? Pretty easy to do. All right. But we'll show you a couple other tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that. I'm going to Shift Control G to ungroup this because it's already been grouped, I know. So now when I click on these things, right, they're individual instead of the whole star clicking, right? Oh, interesting. I kind of went back and forth here. So that's weird of me. So I'm just going to delete that guy. I'm going to delete that guy. And these three. So as you can tell with the outline, that's the dark half star. That is the full light star. Full light star, full light star. So now I have these little weird doodads, right? What do I do with that? So what I do with it is I choose... Oh, interesting. Yeah, let's just do it this way. What I do with that is I delete these little dummy half stars, and I grab this guy. All right, so what I'm going to do is called a rotation it's basically rotating and copying the shapes. So you can use that to make clock faces or any sort of like roundy thing. You'll see in a second. Now, the annoying part, here's a little complaint about Illustrator, is it doesn't work with my pen for some reason. And it took me a long time to figure it out, but it does not play nicely with the pen. So I have to reach over here and switch to the mouse, right? This is the rotation tool. So I click on this little corner right here. I hold down Alt. Oops. First I click on the rotation tool like a dummy. Then I hold down Alt. And you see the little minus sign up here there? That's telling me that it's ready to go. So I'm holding down Alt, click, and it opens up this little sub-menu, right? And so this sub-menu, basically you can now rotate things around this common point. Donk, 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 donk. And you don't have to do math because it'll do math for you, right? So I can do 360 divided by 5 because that's how many versions of it I want. And then I can do copy. So, oh, pretty cool, huh? And it's going to go, I'll just delete one out, but I could also go opposite and do this way if I want. And then see, it's told me it's 72%. So we're going to copy, and now it's copied one. And then I'm going to Control D as in dog, or D as in duplicate. And I'm going to go duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. All right. Then I'm going to come back over here on the selection tool. I'm going to grab this extra one that we have here and delete it. And now we have a nice solid green star made out of 5 component parts. Now I could come over here. There's what's called a Pathfinder tool, and I could merge that into a single star. Let's try it. Yoink, it's a star. But I like leaving things, I do this on occasion, but for whatever reason, maybe I'll need these little chevron-y doodad things for some other thing, right? I could use, whoops, let me ungroup this here. I could use, there we go. I could use this little component part here, right, for other stuff if I wanted to by stealing it or whatever. So what I'm going to do instead of merging it all together is I'm going to Control G to group it. Now when I select it, it grabs all of it, right? So now I'll do the trick that I showed you first by holding down Alt to make the little duplicate. Drag it over to there, drag it over to there. There we go. Grab this top one, delete it. Now this one, you're like, oh wait, it's over the top of the other one because stuff is in order, right? So you come up to this and you do that, and it's telling you the stacking order of stuff right there, right? So what I'm going to do, instead of just trying to figure out, I could do, is it this one? Is it this one? No, it's not that one. Is it that one? Oh, it's that one. All right, so that took me like 10 clicks to do, right? Instead, I want to just highlight it, and I want to hit Control left bracket, which is down, right? Did you see it? So watch it right over here. Right now, that's where it's at in the hierarchy, and I need it to be above, or I need it to be below that star that's underneath it. Those stars are up in here, so that I could just grab that star and delete it, right? And it's all very quick once you know the thing, right? So I'm going to Control left bracket goes down, and Control right bracket goes up. So I'm just going to go up, and oh, because I'm a dummy, I needed to go down. Dun, dun, there we go. All right, right? So that goes under that now. Now, this is at the top. I can just select it and delete it, and we're good to go, right? So the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outline, and I'm going to make it bigger, because I think it needs to be a little beefier, basically. So how I do that is Illustrator has insides and outsides of things, right? So when I draw a square, it has an outline on it, and it has an inner color. If I was to go down here to this little symbol, there's the black inside, there's the line outside, right? If I clicked on the line, I can get rid of it. Now it's just a black square. Or when this is in front here like this, I can grab it, and now it's a yellow square, right? So that's how that works. So, bye-bye square. I'm going to grab that line, and you can see here it's on top now so that I can manipulate it. If it was like that, that switches the colors. And then if it's like that, now the black is the thing that I would manipulate if I did anything. Even though it's showing this, it's actually selected the whole object, right? So now if I did that, ooh, that's bright too, then all of that would change, right? Okay, so I'm going to grab that. And then here's your little lines, stroke they call it. So you can open up your stroke menu. That gives you a thickness in points. This is a menu that I think a lot of beginning users aren't as aware of, and it solves a lot of problems. One of the things, this area right here especially, right? It's basically showing you if you want to cap. So let's get a real good solid example here. There is a line, okay? We're going to zoom in, make it a little easier to see. So right now, this line has a cap, which is your little vector doodad here, and then mark, right? If I was to hit that, hey, now it's rounded, right? And then now it sticks slightly out, so that if I had two of these matched up together, it would create kind of a different effect there, right? So that's one thing. That's pretty cool. Then we come down here, and let's look at this corner, right? Nice little corner here. Nice little corner there. Maybe I want a rounded corner. Actually, I do want a rounded corner. I'm going to leave that. Or a cut off corner, right? Pretty cool. And then this bottom one, you can see it's aligned in the middle, but sometimes you want to maybe line it inside, and sometimes maybe you want to line it outside. Changes the effect and the shape of things. These are the most interesting to use, because you can kind of stack stuff, and you could have one colored line inside and one colored line outside. You can also do that through a menu. We're not going to get into that right now because that gets kind of into the weeds. But there's also just sort of a whoops. There we go. I'm using control plus and minus to make things bigger and smaller. And I can use my fingers to do pinchy squeezy stuff too. I'm working on a PC, by the way, not any kind of tablet or any of that. All right, so I want to make this line thicker, which I can do just like this. Right? I can just tap it up. And I have basic numbers that I like, that I use more often than others because they look aesthetically pleasing. So that's a creative thing. You can choose whatever you want, but a lot of times, in whatever reason, you can also open up the menu, this way, and do that. A lot of times in this document specifically, I use 6-point lines, and then for sometimes 2 and 1. I think I'm going to go a full 8 on this because I like that boldness of it, right? It closed up the gap in here a little bit too, which is interesting. But then I could affect that, right? Like if I click it and I put it on the outside, now it opened up that gap. This is the stuff you're looking at. As a designer, you are looking at your thing that you're building and its shapes and all the rest of that. But one of the most important aspects of these things is what's called negative space, which is the space in between your objects, right? So if I go inline, now it's got a thin little line. And for me, you may like that and you may want to keep that. But for me, that's uncomfortably close. I don't like it. And so that's, there we go. That's better. But I think I like that the best. And the reason that I am, although now looking at it, this line thickness is different than that gap. And that bugs me a little bit, right? So maybe we will just go back to what I had it for originally. This line feeling a little bit thinner than that line. And then honestly, the other thing I can do is I liked 8 initially. Maybe 6 does work better, right? You just play with it a little bit, right? But then see, but maybe this works better if I go up to 8, 9, 10. Now they're about even, right? Yeah, That's what you do. And that's all design is, man, is you get your basic idea, and that's fine. But everybody's got an idea. Ideas are not unique and interesting. They're just a starting point. And so once you get your starting point going, the execution of things is really what you want, right? And then the reason that I didn't move this, you're like, oh, why didn't you move that? Is because I am perfectly happy with the ratio, the way that these are set up with this space and this big space. This grouping I want to keep intact, and I want to work around that by using this thing, right? So now I'm going to do that, and I'm going to group it with Control G. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm about to build the actual thing finally, right? So because there are, I need to stop saying right, I realized. Because there are 6 of these artboards, the program needs to know which artboard you're on, essentially. So you can click it, and then you can see it highlighted a little bit. And then you drag it over into here, and then you use these, what are called align tools here. So I can click this one, which will put something into the exact middle of that artboard, right? I did the right again. And then let's say I move it to here. I can do this, and then I can do that. And now it's perfectly centered. The other thing that I do is I try to make all of these a relatively consistent size. And that size is 350 pixels. However, the other things that I've created have the strokes. Actually, a lot of them don't even have strokes. I don't use strokes on very many things, as you can tell from, let's look at engineering again. Engineer, there we go. Right, like there's no stroke on that. There's none on that, none on that, none on that. So that's not a look that I normally do on a thing, but because of this, I could make, so another thing I could experiment with is making this whole badge this dark green and then making the things inside of it that two-tone green. But I actually like this, and I'm going to keep it. I like the simplicity of it. But it's crowding the edges. Those are 350 as well, though they're not perfectly square. Once again, we go back to engineering and engineering class A. That's perfectly square, and you can see that there's a little more of a gap. That's actually not perfectly square because the gaps here are wider than the gaps there, so never mind. But you can see that, let's unlock this and see how big this is. All right. So this is 350 on the largest side and 241 on the smallest side. So the Pilot 350 is, to me, a little too big, slightly, even though that's the standard size that I use. It's interesting. It fits in a square, and it doesn't look like it would. Huh? But yeah, that's cool. All right. So I'll go down here. You can double click on something to go inside of it, basically. Remember how I had all this stuff grouped? Now I'm inside of it, and now I can choose the individual elements again, manipulate them, and then bop out over here, back out to where I was. So I'm going to click on that, and I did 10 pixels as a stroke width. So I'm going to reduce this by 10 and see how that looks. So I'm going to do, and what's interesting about that is I'm actually 20 over, so it may be that I go down another 10. Yeah, see, it's still pretty crowded on the side. So we're going to go to 230. There. And now the gaps should be, let's check, the same as that, right? It's, I guess, a teensy bit up, a teensy bit bigger. It's, I think, the same size. Yeah, sidewise, it's the same. I think that might be, oh no, it is. It's just slightly, oh, that's because this one is asymmetrical. Never mind. This one is shorter than it is wider. So we can see that the wideness, right, is the same thickness, basically. Pretty sure. If I want to super double check, I can do this, and just for a second, do that, and then yeah, I can see that it's the same. So we'll undo that. We'll boop out, boop, boop. And we'll get rid of that. We'll close down engineering again. All right. So now I have my base pilot badge. And then I, once again, click on it. You use Control a lot just to clone things this way. Now I have smart guides turned on, so it's telling me that's in the center. But sometimes, because I'm old and shaky, after 45 years of playing football and doing random crap. I don't trust it sometimes, and it's that I don't trust myself to not release it and not like move it around a little bit, although it's pretty good about holding stuff. But because I don't want it to be messed up, I just go up here and sort of double change it, and it's the same. It's set. There has been a few times where something slips 2 or 3 pixels, and then I clone it across, and now they're all off, and then I don't notice it till later, and I'm like, ugh. So now control, whoops, select control. Oh, there's a shift in there. I just realized. So you hit that, you hold down control to do the clone, and then you hold the shift key. Oh, no, I don't. Okay, cool. I'm like, how do I do this? It's just so second nature to me. So you can just drag with the control key held. What the shift key does is lock it into this horizontal position. So now it can't go up and down, see? And so that is probably centered, because it says, sometimes it says intersect and sometimes it says center, which is kind of annoying. And then if I adjust it just a teensy bit, then that happens, which seems okay. Anyway. So it'll kind of tell you when stuff is evenly spaced, but it's not the best at it. But just to make sure, we already know it's okay up and down. We'll just do that. And I couldn't tell if it moved just a little bit. Some of you guys with younger eyes, maybe. All right, cool. And now I've got them all set up. Now Control S to save, because I've reached a progress point that I like. And now I can begin putting the little mini icons in the middle of these like I do. So I look over here. What kind of pilots are we going to have? What kind of subskills does pilot have? Pilot has civilian, industrial, and military. So we know we have little icons for this already. So there's civilian already set. And then I'm going to grab military, and I'm going to grab civilian. And the other one is industrial. We'll get to industrial in a minute. So let's copy that, Control C. Let's close that. Let's go to pilot. I'm going to do a Control F, which is paste in front. And then this one already just shows up where it shows up. So that's great. And then I'm going to drag this down, holding Shift key again. And I'm going to try to center it, but it doesn't quite know how to center. So we'll just get onto that artboard. Make sure we do that. Yeah, see, it went down just a little bit. And now 2 are already done, which is why I like tying them together thematically. All right. So now we have industrial. And I'm not sure what to do with industrial. Normally industrial stuff is sort of civilian related, but I have a civilian pilot, which would be like small Firefly type ships or whatever. The industrial stuff would be like big mining rigs, mining spaceships, and then military is obviously military. Industrial, I think, also will probably cover capital ships. I haven't quite figured all that part out from a game sense or whatever. What seems industrial? And so what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go down here into electronics and all the rest of that and be like, all right, well, that doesn't do anything for me. What about engineer? So engineer, this is stellar, so that would actually be okay. And I could even change the name of the thing to stellar as opposed to industrial. So you would have military with obvious military vessel, and then you'd have little vessels and large vessels. And the more I'm thinking about this, the more I like it, because again, I want to reuse these icons as much as possible if they make sense. That's how you build like a readable thing for people to recognize and all that. So we're just going to go ahead and copy that. We're going to pull the trigger on this. And plus it's, less work and we're lazy. So when you forget to highlight the layer, it automatically thinks you want to put it on the layer, which I find kind of dumb. Maybe a lot of people kind of use this, but clearly if I lock a layer down, I'm kind of done using it for a second, and I want to use this other layer. That's the kind of stuff that I think the AI should be doing. Like, I don't give a fuck about generative backgrounds and shit, but just be smart enough to know that I'm working on Pilot right now, right? And that I shouldn't have to go clear up here and do this to do my thing because I made a mistake. This, I did the Control F and it kind of put it where it was. Was it there? It wasn't there actually. So why is it doing that, I wonder? Let's try that again. Just maybe I messed up here. Engineering, hey, oops, let's give it a pilot. Yeah, it should be putting it down there. So let's Control C. Oh, I bet it's because I had this selected. I need to select the actual square that I wanted in. Perfect. Nice. All right, and then I don't mind this little bit here. I could lower it. And you know what? Let's try it. See, it should be telling me what that lower thing is, but it's trying to be smart and it's failing a little bit. And so now I can't get it exactly. All right, so we're going to try a different thing. We're going to show you a different thing here. These alignment tools that I've been showing you. Whoa, calm down there, son. Speaking of bad things with reflexes. You can set this two different ways. You can basically go by, or three different ways, I guess. You can do it by artboard, which is what I've been doing. But now what I want is selection. So what I want to do is I want to select this, and I want to select that. And then I want to make them align. The one that is unaligned to the direction you're going is the best way to say that. So because this is inside this, the larger object isn't going to move. It would get trickier if it was like that. If it was like this, if I tried to align them to the right, this would move to here. If I tried to align them to the left, this would move to there. If I tried to do the top, this moves, bottom, this moves, right? So I want that, and I want the bottom because I want to line it up in that thing to see what it looks like. So I come up here. Oh, and it did do it. It proved me wrong. Why did it? Oh, because of the lines, because of the way that I have the stroke. So that is annoying. So now what I'll do, it's not annoying, it's the way it should work, is I'll hold down Shift to move it up so that it's there. And then, yoink. And that is Illustrator in a nutshell. The other thing I would think about doing maybe is moving this little dot because of the little star awkwardness here. But that would also change this logo into something new. So that is super awkward though, isn't it? So let's ungroup this. There it goes. Now it's lined up perfectly. So yeah, and then I regroup. I'm going to go ahead and go with that. I'm trying to reuse stuff, but this is still identifiable as that other logo. And honestly, only you and me are going to know the difference. Anybody else, it's not going to matter too much. All right. So I'm going to open up this menu, which gives me the name of the artboards. And what this is a shortcut. Instead of having to do the file names when I do the export, I can just do it from here. So I do pilot, I highlight pilot and copy it. I use tab to go to here, paste, parenthesis, civilian. Paste, comma, not parentheses, I guess. For now, let's just call this Stellar and maybe change the name of the skill. Stella! Because I also like having the names be consistent as well. There. All right. So once that's done, now we're going to Control-Alt-E, which is export, and then you can choose which ones you want to do. This resets each time, which is a little weird. So you just open that up. All right, Foundry Assets. So you navigate to the folder you want them in. And now we export, except for military. Do that. It's going to want to replace Pilot, the old version, which I'm totally fine with, right? And then I'm going to turn on the red. Oh, did I do the wrong? Let's find out. Oh, no, I did it right. And then I'm going to unselect these, do Pilot, cool. I'm going to turn these back into green. I'm going to save. And I'm going to move on to the next thing that I have to do. So anyway, I hope some of that was useful and that you enjoyed yourself. I didn't go off on any sort of crazy rants like I do sometimes. It was all pretty much work. So if you're watching this, I appreciate your patronage. Please feel free to comment anything that you're curious about. And join us again next time.